Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've done a couple of videos lately, and there's a common theme emerging from a few of them. And it's something I believe passionately about. So please, this isn't like some random video being talked about, while driving down the road. I mean, it is those things, but this is, I think, really key to comics. And every now and then I do a topic or I'm talking about some kind of general thing, and I wish that I could like flag it to say, hey, take notice of this one, because I think this is kind of a key to unlocking, how the business works, how the people are, and everything else. This one's important. We get kind of constantly barraged by so much noise about kind of various topics. It's why I'm probably so negative about the whole comics are woke, SJW comics, all that kind of stuff. The reason I'm so negative is it feels like a trap, and it often is a trap. It's a trap because it creates these weird circular conversations that ultimately they're very self-serving. They don't go anywhere. So an example of which, by the way, when I did the Miss Marvel video, what surprised me about that, I don't know, I guess it didn't surprise me. I'm being very blunt about this. And you can even believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me either way. But there was a dramatic amount of comments that got held back, meaning in the YouTube censored area. And the comments were along the lines of, I'm not going to watch that show because it features a Muslim woman, because it features a brown woman. I'm not going for brown women. I'm not going for women in comics. And I see lots of people at various times who talk about how, hey, nobody actually thinks that way. The kind of people who are against Marvel and Disney are not racist. And by the way, I agree. I think the vast majority of people who are frustrated with Marvel are not racist. When I say vast majority, I mean like 96%. I don't know, whatever that number is. The vast majority. The people who complain, it's too easy to call all those people racist. They're not. They're unhappy. They're unhappy because the comic isn't reflecting what they want to buy. They're unhappy because changes have been made that do not correspond with kind of the background of the comic. There's lots of reasons why they might be unhappy. Tons. But I think if you immediately default to racist, I think it's too easy to just go, oh, it's racism. And then you get, it's like you're giving yourself a free pass to ignore whatever they're commenting on. The reality is, a lot of these complaints are legitimate. If you're complaining about the price of Marvel Comics, hey, guess what? That's not a racist comment. You can say, no, I think comics are priced just fine, but the debate about if it's a racist, the debate about if it costs too much is not racist by its nature. To say so is disingenuous. If your complaint is that you don't like that Marvel keeps replacing their kind of legacy characters with new diverse ones, and thus, whitewashing the past, I think, again, that's a legitimate complaint. It's not racism. If you write something along the lines of, hey, I don't read comics from, and then kind of racist term to call Muslim people, which is what a lot of the comments were, I'm sorry, that actually, congratulations, that actually is racist. I don't think it's that hard to figure out what's racist in comics and what isn't. It's not that hard because most of the people who do this are pretty straightforward about about where they stand. It's not a giant mystery. If if for example you say I don't think any black people belong in comics, congratulations, that's pretty racist. Sorry, we don't. You can debate whether or not you need to label it that or not, but it is what it is. If you say that, hey, I don't think women should be superheroes in comics because women are all bitches, congratulations, that is pretty sexist. It is. It just is by its nature. You can deny that all you want. But regardless of all that, I think the majority, and I do believe the majority of comments about comics are legitimate. I think they come from I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Just like I'm willing to give one side the benefit of the doubt, I'm willing to give the critics the benefit of the doubt. The majority of people who are saying, I don't like this about a Marvel comic, are not sexist, bigot, terrible people. I think they have a legitimate complaint. You know in your heart if you believe, in your heart that there should be no black people in comics, you know what you are. That's your problem, quite bluntly. I think you're no matter who you're not fooling anyone. You know. But if you're saying things like, "Hey, look, I just want to return to 80s storytelling. Hey, I don't want to be preached to in my comics," whatever it happens to be, that's not racism. That's expressing your opinion. And I think it's become too big of a shield for people who work in comics to use that as a way to say, I don't have to listen to criticism, because if I just label all the criticism as racist, then, I basically get to excuse myself from having to pay attention to any of it. I think that's a very true sentiment. But here's the rub. As I said, I've been doing these videos about a handful of topics. And the reality is, I think that, look, I'm going to make this statement, and it goes counter to things that Stan Lee said. Okay, Stan Lee is meant to be the authority on comics and the guy who is kind of the grandfather of a lot of things. And so I'll make this comment knowing that I am in opposition at this point to things that Stan Lee used to talk about. And my comment is this. I don't think the priority of comics is to be relatable. I think that comics should be entertaining. I think that's the number one priority. Be entertaining, be engaging, do something to, transport the reader into a different world. That's what comics are about. Comics as meant to be relatable, I feel, is this trap that has kind of come up recently. That is it is a fallacy. When we say comics are supposed to be relatable, what we mean by that, or what used to be meant by that, is that comics had enough of a tether to your life that you could more or less you could attach yourself to the story. And it wasn't meant to be an always thing. When Jack Kirby was doing the New Gods, or stories about cosmic kind of universes the Fantastic Four were up to, those are not meant to be relatable. Those are meant to be entertaining. And if they were entertaining, that's the excitement. That's what gets you to the table. That's what, tells you, hey, as a reader, I want to buy this thing. I want to immerse myself in this world. The challenge is, in 2022, we've tricked ourselves into believing that comics need to be relatable. The characters need to be, we need to be able to see ourselves in the characters. But unfortunately, that's led to a lot of really bad decisions. In a world, and again, this is part of where this video came from, in a world where you've got, magical machines that can change your race and gender with a couple kind of light rays and science, that the relatable when it comes to sexual identity starts to be strange. It does raise question. In a world where you've got a multiverse, in a world where you've got multiple Earths, in a world where you've got science that can, ward off toxic gas that the Red Skull blankets the country with, things like environmental issues don't make a whole lot of sense. Relatable is a bit of a trap. The comics need to be entertaining. The comics need to be enlightening. The comics need to have enough of a tether to whatever you're trying to write in order to ignite the imagination and do interesting things. You should not handcuff yourself with a relatability. And maybe that's a better way to say it. Comics can be relatable, but that can't be a doctrine. That can't be the handcuffs on the writer to say you've got to make this story relatable. And if it's not relatable enough, you need to tell a new story. No. Nobody was telling Jack Kirby, hey, this New God stuff, I don't know. You've got a black guy on skis flying through space. That nobody understands that. Black people don't ski. That's not true, by the way. Black people ski just fine. But nobody was saying this to Jack Kirby, because think about it. That's absurd. You would be laughed out of the room if you said something like that back in 1970, 1980. But today, there's enough conversations with editors, with other people in comics that say, no, you got to be relatable. No, you gotta make sure that everyone can see themselves in this comic. Why? Is that a goal? Why is that a goal? Don't make that a goal. There's no value in creating relatable comics in a world where you have the entire kind of palette of imagination to work with. If you're going to do trans characters in a comic book, you've got to find a way to make it make sense in the universe. You can't just do it because, hey, we might have a couple trans readers out there and they want to see a trans character that reminds them of them. That's not a good enough reason. I'm just saying it's not. At the end of the day, comics is storytelling. And by the way, to be completely fair about it, it's not good enough to say, hey, we got a straight white guy who likes women. That's not enough. We went through some of that period in the 90s. It failed. You can't just have like, I'm a horny white guy who likes women with big tits. That's not enough to sell comics. I know some people may buy it, but it's not enough to capture an audience. You have to actually bring some imagination, some amazing story to the table in addition to the tits. You've just got to. You can't just go with, pandering to anyone, any audience. Gay, straight, transgender, white, black, Muslim, it's not enough. It is pandering. Look, I'm sorry. There's no other way to kind of call it out. When you're doing this stuff, it's pandering. Don't pander to your audience. Your audience will disappear. That's the problem in comics today. Is somehow we have fooled ourselves into believing that we have to be relatable over entertaining. And that's a trap. If you're not entertaining, you're not selling, and in a crazy way, you're not relatable. I'd like to believe that every single person out there, no matter who you are, I understand the meme about, people are bots and they're clones of each other, and like the left wing, the right wing say parrot the same thing. But we are also all individuals. We all believe different things in some nuanced way. We've all had different life experiences. We've all come from different places. The idea that we're going to create a superhero who's young and black and somehow that's going to magically be relatable to all the young black people out there is, quite frankly, racist. It's as racist as the person who is, who's telling me that they won't watch Miss Marvel because it features a brown woman. That they're honestly, this isn't both sides. It's racist either way. It's taking people for granted. Human beings are complex. They're complex creatures. We have vastly different life experiences in who we are, in what we do. Whether you're right, left, or center, there's a lot of differences between who we are as human beings. And if you boil us down to just a handful of surface traits, that doesn't work. That's actually, as it turns out, not relatable, which is why a lot of these quote-unquote relatable comics sell terribly. They bomb. They bomb because there's no imagination to them. There's no excitement to them. There's no energy to them. You have to be able to tell a story, tell an incredible story that is new and different and exciting and captures the imagination. That's what we need. And quite frankly, that's what people want. So, I think that we need to dismantle the myth that comics must be relatable, at least as the top priority. Comics have to be entertaining. They have to be engaging. They can be entertaining in a fun, wacky, disconnected way. They can be entertaining in a, serious, deconstructed, grimdark kind of way, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of different ways you can entertain. But just saying, hey, let's make these comics relatable, that's not enough. That's failing as a creator. And I think it's time we start to actually call that out. That is failure. It's I don't know. There's so many commentaries about why manga is successful in ways that comics are not at this current point in time in 2022. To me, it's not that big a mystery, nor is it anything that I think manga should pat themselves on the back for. At the end of the day, the manga that is very popular in the US, the stuff that's winning, just like the YA stuff, just like the scholastic stuff, it's entertaining. If you put a copy of Dogman in front of kids, they're entertained. If you put a copy of Marvel's Voices in front of kids, they're going to be turned off. Even though Marvel Voices is far more quote unquote relatable to those kids than a talking dog policeman. You got to entertain. If you entertain, you give yourself massive power to educate, to inform, to do all of these other things. If you pick relatable first, you're setting yourself up for failure. And quite frankly, that's what a lot of people have done. And that's why a lot of these efforts have failed and continue to fail. Anyway, I feel pretty strong about this. I think it is, by its nature, the core of understanding what has gone wrong with comics and what needs to be adjusted. It's this. It's quite simply make comics to entertain first. Make them relatable. I don't know, third, fourth, fifth. Who cares? I guarantee you, Jack Kirby, when he was off making these cosmic universes, he was not thinking, wow, I better make this relatable to that, that kid from the single mom household in Kansas City. I better make it relatable to that kid. No, his goal was to say, let's blow this kid's mind. Let's put something out there that this kid has never seen before in their life. Let's do that. That is magic. Thanks for listening.